Hello. My name is Light, and welcome. Today we're going to go over something really exciting. Ravensburger just showed off some of the cards for the second set called Rise of the Floodborn. So we're going to go over those cards. There are 13 of them. We're also going to go over some other accessories that they showed off, as well as some of the other products that they have. So I don't want to waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first up is Bell. It is a 3/3 for 5 uninkable, and it quests for 3. This card is pretty good. It's our first Floodborn. This is also, I believe, our third Bell that we've had in the game so far. It has Shift 3, which means that you can pay 3 ink instead if you put this card on top of another Bell. Not too bad of ability. However, I will say that the only other bells that are in the game is you have Strange but Special, which is arguably one of the best cards in the game. Don't at me. And there's also Inventive Engineer. They don't really match too much of the play style of the other two bells, so I'm not really sure if it fits those. They're also different colors, so I don't see anyone getting rid of Strange but Special for this card. It is powerful, but it is not amazing. I mean, Strange but Special is just such a good card, and the Inventive Engineer is a fine card, but it doesn't really mix with this playstyle, so I don't really see you inking either of those two to get this one. And its second ability there is Thorny Arrows. It says whenever this character is challenged, the challenging character's player discards all of the cards in their hand, which is insane. That ability is quite similar to Flynn Rider, which is in the same colors. They're both in Emerald, which is really great. Whereas Flynn Rider is whenever it's challenged, you can see on the screen here, whenever it's challenged, they will discard a card. So they're both doing a very similar thing where when they're challenged, the player discards something, which in a game like Lorcana, which having cards in your hand is so valuable because you're not only using them to play things, but you're also using them to ink. So especially earlier in the game, you're getting rid of 2 cards a turn. These can be pretty powerful. This could certainly be backbreaking if you find yourself with no cards in your hand. That being said, like I said, I don't see you inking any of the previous bells for this one with the shift ability, and 5 uninkable is quite a challenge to get to, and she's pretty flimsy when it comes to her toughness, so her willpower, sorry. So we'll see, but it is a very powerful card. All right, next up we have Mickey Mouse Friendly Face. This is a 1/6 for 6 inkable, and it quests for 3. There's not a lot to say about this card. It's a super rare. It has an ability that says whenever this character quests, you may pay 3 less for the next character you play this turn. That's pretty good, especially since this card you are going to be primarily questing. This card is pretty hard to get rid of. It has a lot of willpower. It's got a really big butt. So the only way you're realistically getting rid of this card is through direct banishing spells like Dragon's Fire or Be Prepared. You're not really going to fight straight into this, challenge this Mickey Mouse. So you are going to be questing quite a bit with this one. So the fact that you can pay 3 less for your next character is pretty good because that's primarily what you're going to be doing with this card. That being said, is that worth 6? I'm not sure. I'm sure there will be decks that will try to work this one in, but I just I think of all the cards we're going to be going through today, this one I'm kind of on the fence of how good it truly is. But this is a Mickey Mouse card, always fun to see. Next card is Zero to Hero. This is a 2 uninkable action song, and it says that count the number of characters you have in play. You may pay that amount of ink less for your next character you play this turn. So this one is a very interesting design. We haven't seen anything, at least to my knowledge, that counts the characters you have in play. So it's a very different design space that we haven't seen before. I don't know if this is worth the 2 ink that you would put into this, because you would have to have, in order for this to be worth it, you would have to have at least 2 characters on the field to be neutral in ink, because you paid 2 to play this, but you would also be down a card. So in order for it to be worth the card and the ink, you're going to want at least three, if not four or five characters on the field to play this. Granted, you can sing it, so that can make it for free, but and you will guaranteed have one character there. So I, I think unless we see a go wide strategy emerge, a meta with a go wide, I don't see this one really seeing too much play. That being said, I think the artwork is spectacular. Rob DeSalvo did a spectacular job on this. I think it's really fun that you see him looking forward into the future of what he will be as Hercules that we all know and love. So cool design, cool card, but I'm not positive we'll see too much play of this one. All right, next one is a fun one. This is the Queen Commanding Presence. She is a 4/3 for 5 inkable and quests for 2. She has Shift 2, and she also has Who is the Fairest. Whenever this character quests, choose opposing characters, get -4. Sorry, I said plural. It is choosing opposing character gets -4 this turn, and chosen character gets +4 this turn. So this is a really interesting one. First off, I find it really interesting that she is a Floodborn, but she's still a villain. Um, Obviously the Queen is a villain, but from what I understand, the Floodborn is kind of alternate versions of these characters because they got messed up in the kind of maelstrom of the ink, and so they come out with slightly different versions of themselves. You can see here, she's commanding more of like a yellowish magic than her traditional like purple and green. So, there is a little bit of change to her here, but she's still a villain. I think it'd be really fun to see a villain become like what if she was a good queen because she was on the Floodborn. I'm sure that'll happen in the future, but anyway, that's just the first thing I noticed. The other thing is this is a really really cheap shift cost. So it's good the fact that you get quite a discount. That being said, there's only one other queen, and she's the exact same cost as this queen. She is also 5. So right now, you're not really getting too much. I mean, you're not getting a discount. You have really no reason to play the other queen, to shift this on top of your other queen, since you're going to be paying more ink. You might as well just, if you already have 5 ink to make that queen, you have the 5 ink to make this queen. So and the other queen is pretty good. She taps and draws cards. So it's not. I wouldn't say that you would really ever find yourself shifting onto that queen, but it does to me imply that there's going to be other queens down the road that you might want to shift onto. A shift to me, I feel like you should be at least getting a discount. You don't get that here, so I don't see you doing that too much here. The other thing that I found interesting is that this is another villain in Amber, which is just not very common right now. I think the one off the top of my head, I believe the only other Amber villain is Hades, who looks awesome. He is in the uh, gift bundle, and you get the large card of him. So I think that is the only other Amber villain that you find. So she's among good company. But other than that, I think this is a good card. When it comes to giving them -4 power and +4 power, I think that's fine. I do think the other queen is better. Just drawing cards, especially in this game, is just amazing. And 5 to quest for 2. mm, the fact that it's a 4/3 means that it's slightly underrated, which means that its abilities need to be higher, and I just don't think they quite get there. That being said, she will help you out when it comes to banishing your opponent's characters and keeping yours alive. So fun card. I don't think it's going to be backbreaking or anything, but it is a fun card. All right, moving on to some Amethyst, we have Merlin, Shapeshifter. He is a 1/5 for 4 inkable, and he quests for 1. He also has the ability Battle of Wits. Whenever one of your other characters is returned to your hand from play, this character gets +1 lore this turn. So I'm not for sure if this can stack. It does say this turn, so I imagine if you keep bouncing your stuff, it will stack. I see no reason why it won't, but that is one thing, is this Merlin could get absolutely crazy if you find ways of just bouncing a ton of characters. So it says whenever one of your other characters is returned from your hand. So keep in mind, it's not your opponent's, it's your own. So you'll have to play Befuddle. I believe that's the only way that I can think of that returns your card directly from play into your hand, not to the deck or from the graveyard or anything like that. So this is the only one I do believe that returns it straight from play to your hand. So you have to play Befuddle. I do find it funny. That one also has Merlin, so clearly they were planning on that one. But if you find yourself befuddling multiple times, this card could get absolutely crazy. He also has a pretty big butt. He's got 5 willpower, so he's going to be sticking around. I also see that he's a sorcerer there, which obviously makes sense. You're going to see later on that almost every card that's revealed here is going to be a sorcerer for Amethyst. So sorcerer is certainly getting some support. So if we find that there is a um, sorcerer lord or something that ties into sorcerers more than it just being a type. Amethyst is getting quite a few of those. We already have Mickey Mouse, but now we'll have Merlin and a few more that we'll go over in just a moment. I also, honestly, I'm just stoked to see more Sword in the Stone. There wasn't too much, you had Befuddle and I believe Develop Your Brain, but it's one of my favorite movies from childhood, so I'm just really happy to see more of that. As I said, here's another amethyst and another sorcery. So this one is very cute. It's Winnie the Pooh, Honey Wizard. He is a 5/5 for 5 inkable, and he quests for 2. He's a vanilla creature. He doesn't have any special abilities. He's just a big boy who quests for 2. I don't have too much to say here other than one, again, that's another sorcerer for the amethyst. There's a lot of those. There's going to be a lot of those. So if we ever find a lot of support for just the sorcerer type in general, this is going to be great. Amethyst will be set up well. A 5/5 for 5 is pretty much right on curve, if not a little below curve. Questing for 2, pretty good. I mean, this card is a beater. It's going to be hard to get rid of. It's going to be hard to deal with, unless you directly banish it. But other than that, it's nothing too special. It's just a vanilla creature, which we have seen some vanilla creatures do well in the meta. So we'll see if Winnie the Pooh breaks through. I don't personally think so, unless there's any additional support for Dreamborn Hero or Sorcerers to give this one an extra edge there. But I think everyone's favorite part of this card is going to be just the artwork by John Lauren. It's absolutely incredible. I love this so much. All right, we have the Sorcerer's Spellbook, which is a 3 uninkable item, and it has the ability Knowledge. You exert it and pay 1 ink and gain 1 lore. Very simple. However, this could end up being a crazy card. This is probably, I think, the first real item that is a win condition. Every other item that we've seen so far has been an item that is helpful, but I wouldn't necessarily say is a win condition. Like, you don't have to get rid of it. It will help your opponent. They could run away with the game, but the card itself is not a win condition. You don't have to necessarily get rid of that item itself. But this one, you will have to eventually answer. I it's slow, obviously. It's 3 mana or 3 ink, and you only gain 1 lore. So, realistically, you're getting this down on turn 3 at the sorry, well, you're getting it down on turn 3, but you're not using it until turn 4. So if that's your first lore, then you're not waiting until turn 24. So obviously, very, very slow. You're probably not going to win on its own. However, it will help you build that momentum, put the pressure on your opponent, and it will have to be answered if you have, more than one of these, or if they just let it run away. Sometimes you do just have 1 ink sitting around. pay it into this, and you get one lore. So I'm excited to see where this one goes because it's a very simple card. It's definitely a good card, but whether it will break through because of its speed, we'll see. I'm also very interested in seeing more items like this that are more powerful because if we see more items like this that are more powerful, we might start to see a meta shift around just items in general. If we see this one really take off, find people who are able to bust this one or other items similar to it that are, can be win cons on their own, we might end up seeing people having to main deck item removal, which will be fun because right now that's not really a thing. So hopefully we see that come through. I think it'd be really fun to see an item deck break through because I just, want to see the most diverse decks that there are, and I think this would be a fun one to see. Again, it's pretty slow, and it being uninkable is certainly a bummer because it means you're going to have to go hard into the items. Since this isn't inkable, you're going to play this, so you're going to have to go into items. So we'll see. And I also just want to say again, this is Amethyst and it says the word sorcerer. So, obviously it's not a sorcerer type, but the fact that it is also sorcerer, you could definitely see that this was a theme that they were going for, either with this set in general for Amethyst or just with these first 13 cards. We've got another Amethyst and another Sorcerer. This is Elsa Gloves Off. She is a 3/4 for 4 inkable, and she quests for 1. She also has the ability Challenger +3. So just a reminder, that is, while challenging, this character gets +3 power. So not a lot to say about this card, to be honest. It's just kind of another Elsa. It's not anything crazy. It has decent stat lines for its attack or for its ink. So 3/4 for 4, so it's a little underrate. It having Challenger makes it a 6/4. So on the play or on the challenge, it's a little bit better. It is inkable, that does help, but I mean, I think this is probably one of, if not the most underwhelming of the Elsas. But that being said, it is another Elsa. Not surprising. I think this might be either probably our fourth, I believe, just off the top of my head, our fourth Elsa. So not surprising that this character has some of the most cards. She's one of the most popular characters. And obviously, also, if you want to build an Elsa and Anna deck, this will help out Anna. So it will help Anna be a little bit more consistent. That being said, not an extremely amazing Elsa, and doesn't really tie into the kind of control aspect of some of the other Elsas. So we'll see if this one has any play. That being said, it's just a common, so not really meant to be anything super crazy here, but it is another Elsa, and it is very, very gorgeous artwork. All right, now we're moving into the Sapphires. So this one we have Gaston, Intellectual Powerhouse. He is a 4/4 for 6 uninkable, and he quests for a Mighty 3, which is awesome. He also has the ability Shift 4, and he has Developed Brain, which is when you play this character, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may put 1 into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So this one's really fun. To be honest, this one's like almost as close to the way that I play Magic the Gathering as you can get. I really dig this one. Develop Brain is almost word for word Brainstorm for Magic the Gathering. It's look at the top 3, put that card in your hand, the other 2 go at the bottom of your deck. So it's almost word for word as opposed to putting on the bottom of your deck. Brainstorm doesn't, it puts it back on the top, but like it's so close that you can definitely tell that I had some inspiration there. This is a beefy Gaston. He's 6 uninkable, which is really hard to do. I mean, you're gonna have to be going pretty hard into the strategies that you're going for this Gaston. So a 6 uninkable for 4/4 is definitely underrate. That being said, he has Shift 4, so theoretically you would only pay 4 for this Gaston. That being said, there is only one other Gaston, and that Gaston is a 2 cost. And So you're not really getting a discount. You would have that Gaston out. This next card you would pay 4. So you're still paying 6 in total. You're just instead of paying it all at once, you're, you know, breaking up the payments. So it's not really the same as getting a discount. I also am not necessarily sure what your strategy would be with the Gaston of this 4/4 that quests for 3 and that Gaston which has Reckless. I'm, I'm sure there's a deck there that I'm not really seeing, but I based off of the way that I play and that I know this game, I don't see those two jiving too much. So I don't really see you putting those in the same deck. And the fact that it doesn't give you that discount, nah, yeah, I just don't see you playing this Gaston with that Gaston. Also, in order for you to even make the shift work, you would have to have at least more than one of those other Gastons for it to even make sense. Are you really running, 2 or more of those Gastons? I don't know. I don't think so. So I think this card is powerful. I just think it's costed quite a bit. So we'll see. I think that shift 4 is probably going to have a few other helpful Gastons later on down the line for this one to really shine. But once it gets those, I think this Gaston will absolutely be a powerhouse. So obviously, Gaston's a very popular character. So we'll see if there's another one. Also, just flavor wise, I love that this is a Floodborn and it leans really heavy into the fact that these are reimagined characters. So you have this Gaston who is actually not an idiot and is very much, a super smart guy. And you can see back there that he's got a fun plan on how to kill the, the beast so that he can get Belle. It's him pointing at the castle with the lightning, thunder lightning at the castle. He's breaking it down. That's his amazing plan. And then he's gonna kill the beast, and then he's gonna have Belle. I find that funny because it's a really dumb plan, but he is just a much smarter Gaston. So anyway, has nothing to do with the game other than I just think that one's really fun. All right, next up we have Cinderella Stout-Hearted. She is a 5/5 for 7 inkable, and she quests for 3. I'll be honest, I think this might be one of, if not the best card that we'll be looking at this time around. She has Shift 5, so y'all know what Shift is at this point. She is 7 cost, and she has Shift 5, so it gives you a discount of 2. And just for reference, I'll put it up here on the screen. There's only one other Cinderella, and her cost is 4. So you're not actually getting any discount. If anything, you're kind of technically paying more. You're paying the 4 for that Cinderella, and then you're paying the 5 for this one. So you're paying a total of 9. The total cost here for this one is 7. So the benefit is that you get to split the costs up, but you are paying more for that right to do that. So this is a really strong card, as you'll see as we get into it, but I'm not sure that shift is quite helping you out right now with the current Cinderella that's out. You, as we get more Cinderellas, which I'm sure we will, there will be other Cinderellas that will make this shift probably a little worth it. That being said, it's still a shift 5. It's still going to be expensive. However, the fact that it is inkable does save this card quite a bit. All right, moving on to the next ability, Resist 2, which is a new ability. It is damage dealt to this character is reduced by 2. So resist plus 2 implies that there will be other resist numbers, 1, 4, 5, things like that. Essentially, this just gives you a cushion as you're getting hit. I'm sure this stacks, so if multiple characters were to attack this character, I'm sure it would reduce every damage that it takes by 2. I'm also sure that this card, if they're, hitting it with items that deal it damage, such as Fire the Cannons, it basically won't deal damage to it because it'll reduce that 1 damage down to -2, so it'll be -1. So I see no reason why this damage won't constantly reset every time it's dealt damage. I don't think it's dealt damage this turn once per turn. It doesn't say that. It's totally possible. I haven't personally seen the rules, like the comprehensive rules yet, but it just as I'm reading on the card, that makes sense to me. And then so she is a 5/5. She's going to be really, really hard to banish. having a resist 2, you're going to have to hit her for at least 7 to even think of getting her off the field, and that's in one hit. If you're hitting her multiple times, obviously it's reducing every hit by 2, so you might have to hit her for even more. So this is going to be a great card to just keep on the field, keep questing, or even just if you're on the offensive, she can swing into other characters and either just banish them outright and her not take any damage if they have less than 2, deal less than 2 damage, or gradually just gain some damage. So I think this card is wonderful, and that's not even getting into the third and what I think is the most powerful ability, which is the Singing Sword. She has whenever you play a song, this character may challenge ready characters this turn. So as I was just mentioning, you can challenge other characters with the Cinderella, and she can either take minute amounts of damage or just not take any at all. Meanwhile, she's taking out all of those other characters. And if you're playing songs, you can do that to any of their characters that they're trying to keep alive. So I think this is really powerful. Steel also has access to a really good action card, A Whole New Worlds, one of the best action song cards in the game. So yeah, I mean, this is a an awesome card. I think this is one of, if not the most powerful cards that they've shown off today. So I would definitely keep an eye out for this one. Also, fun fact, I didn't notice this, but someone else I saw noticed this. This is the first time that the type knight is being used. So well, I'm sure there will be more. I'm surprised it hasn't been used before, but I'm sure some of the other princes would have made sense to have it, but this is the first time it's being used. So, really good card. I would definitely keep an eye out for this one. Moving on to another steel card. This is Tiana, Celebrating Princess. She is a 1/4 for 4 uninkable and quests for 2. I just right off the bat, I want to say I think this is an absolutely spectacular looking card. It's very beautiful. It reminds me of Streets New Capenna in a way, of just the way that the art style is. I think Matthew Robert Davies knocked it out of the park in this one. The colors are just super pleasing. But anyway, moving on to the abilities. The first one is again resist 2, so that's the one where it reduces the damage. So far, these are the only 2 resist cards we've seen, and we've only ever seen it resist 2. That doesn't mean that we won't see it resist any other different numbers, but so far those are the only numbers that we're seeing. Hopefully there have been card games, there have been ones, where Magic just does the same number. Hopefully that's not the case. I would love to see it change up. But that is just something that I noticed. And then next up, she has an ability called What You Give Is What You Get. And while this character is exerted and you have no cards in your hand, opponents can't play actions. Now, I will say that's a really strong control ability. Can't play actions. However, the conditions are fairly specific. It's while it's exerted and it's while you have no cards in your hand. That's not that hard to do in this game. Many games that I've played, people have been top decking, especially if you're not playing Amethyst, where you have a lot more access to things like Friends on the Other Side, where you have access to card draw and manipulating the top of your deck. So this is not, those two things are not necessarily hard to do. However, I think the biggest detriment is actually opponents can't play actions. Like I said, very powerful. However, right now there isn't quite a meta that is warped around just actions. There isn't essentially a spell slinging deck right now where it's just action cards. So there are strong action cards out there like A Whole New World, Be Prepared. So Friends on the Other Side, again, like there are really powerful actions out there. However, I'm not seeing that be warping yet to the point where you feel like you'll need to control players from playing actions. So we'll see. I think if we find a lot more actions that warp the meta around them, or we just find more people building decks just around actions as opposed to characters, we will see this card be very good and main deckable. If not, I could see it just being in a side deck or in lower tier decks. But I don't want to take away from the fact that this is a powerful card. It's just I don't see right now the use for it, but that doesn't mean that there won't be a use for it. Moving on to Ruby, we have Dinner Bell. It's a 4 cost uninkable item, and it has the ability, you know what happens. You exert it and pay 2 ink, and you draw cards equal to the damage on chosen character of yours, then banish them. So I like this card. I like the design space of this card. I like the idea of adding more purpose to having damage on your characters. That being said, so many of the games that I've played, damage is very irrelevant. The characters are either banished outright or they just stay on the field and quest. There's been, at least in, speaking personally, there's been not very many games that I've played or that I've seen where there's been a ton of times where a character has had damage onto it, let alone lots of damage. One or two maybe, but paying 4 mana and exerting this and exerting 2 ink and banishing the character that has the damage on it is such a steep cost to draw cards. Now, I will say, drawing cards again, I said this before and I will say it until the end of time, at least until the core of this game changes. Drawing cards in this game, especially earlier in the game, is very, very valuable. It's why I think personally the best card in the game is Friends on the Other Side, because it's almost a free card draw engine at a time when you really need cards and it's easy to pay the ink. This one gives Ruby access to card draw, which is something that's very much lacking. So it is a good card. It gives them access to design space and drawing cards, which is something they don't have. However, by the time you're at 4, and well, it would have to be 5 ink, or at least turn 5, because you'd have to pay 4 on turn 4 for this to come down on the first turn that it can. And then the next turn you ready and have to play it, and you have to have a card with damage on it that isn't banished, and enough for this to be worth your 6 mana cost investment. I don't know. Like, yes, is drawing cards good? Absolutely. Is drawing cards good with this particular mechanic? Right now, I don't think so. Like, if Ruby is really struggling to draw cards, maybe. But I just don't see that being a thing. So we'll see if there's a lot of like bulkier Ruby cards that aren't just, things like Maui that you're just swinging out all the time and is dying fairly quickly. We'll see. But I like that Ruby has access to card draw, but I'm not seeing it be a card that is going to see much use, at least right now. I do like, however, that this is our first Great Mouse Detective card. I think that's really cool. You can see Ratigan in the background. I'm not as familiar with this IP. It's been a really, really long time since I've seen this movie, but I do like that we're seeing a new IP injected into it. I also did mention that with the couple other cards, you have the Sorcerer's Spellbook, which I know we've had the Sorcerer Mickey, but this is another card from Fantasia, which we didn't see a lot of. Obviously, you had Tiana, which was our first Princess and the Frog. And then we're actually going to move on to another card that is from a new IP in just a second. In Raya, Warrior of Kumandra. She's a 5/3 for 4 inkable and quest for 1. This is another new IP to Lorcana. This is Raya and the Last Dragon. This is a not one that I've seen, so I'm not as familiar with what their story is or anything like that. I do want to see it. I have heard good things, but I have not seen this one. Um, However, other than this being a new IP, there's not much to say here. She's a 5/3 for 4 inkable, which is basically right on curve. It's nothing crazy good or crazy bad. Just the fact that she quests for 1 is fine. It's not that good either. Um, she's more on the offensive, I would say, than on the questing side. And at that point, I think there are better cards for what you're trying to do if you're looking to just take out other cards. Now, if you're building just a Ruby beat down deck that's super aggressive and just wants to wipe out your opponent's creatures with or your opponent's characters with your characters, this could be a way of doing it. I think this card is fine. I don't think it's anything crazy, probably one of the weaker cards that we've shown off today. All right, real quick now, after we've gone over the cards, I wanted to go over some of the other things that they announced, such as playmats and accessories and what the booster packs and such will be offered. So let's jump into that real quick. All right, first thing I wanted to show was the booster box. So here you can see the Rise of the Floodborn logo, and you can see a few additional characters that we haven't seen. We see Merlin, Tiana, and Raya there, but you also see the Queen of Hearts and Beast. Beast we've seen before in the first chapter, the Queen of Hearts. This is our first time seeing her. I will point out that not every character here is a Floodborn. Raya isn't a Floodborn, so it's not necessarily saying that the Queen of Hearts or Beast will be Floodborn characters. However, it is certainly possible that they are. But yeah, this is the booster box here. Nothing else crazy to say. It shows off a few more characters. Obviously, we can assume that those will be there. And we can also assume that there will be more Floodborn in this booster box than there was in the first chapter. However, Floodborn do tend to be slightly stronger and have that shift ability. So, do they want to flood the market with Floodborn? Haha, see what I did there? Anyway, I will see. I doubt. I'm sure there will probably be about the same number, or maybe slightly more than the first chapter. Next up, I wanted to show off the starter decks. This time there are two instead of three. You have an Amber and Sapphire starter deck, and you have an Amethyst and Steel starter deck. The Amethyst and Sapphire has the Queen and Gaston. Actually, all four of these characters we've seen. So the Queen, just to remind you, is the one that can boost or minus the power of characters, and the Gaston is the one with the developed brain, where you can do brainstorm. Um, those don't really go together. So, as far as synergies go, I wouldn't necessarily put those together. However, it's those are two fun cards. It also says it includes the two foils. You can assume similar to the other starter decks from the first chapter, those are the two cards that you'll have foils of, so that's nice to know. It also doesn't say here, but we can also assume that they will come with booster packs just as the first chapter did. Moving over, again, we've seen these two cards. This is Merlin and Tiana. Um, and again, these cards don't quite jive together. Just to remind you, Merlin is the card that gives it +1 quest as you bounce your characters back, and Tiana is sort of that control character that keeps your opponent from um, playing actions. If anything, I'd actually say these are almost antagonistic and not synergistic because Merlin wants you to bounce cards back to your hand, and Tiana's ability requires you not to have any cards in your hand. So I'd actually say these don't work together at all. We'll wait to see what cards are in this deck, but I would absolutely not build a deck with those two things in mind because they're trying to do completely opposite things. So I'm not seeing these decks be super synergistic, just as I don't think the first starter decks were super synergistic either. However, these are fun cards. I do actually want to build around Merlin and Tiana, so I will be happy to have those cards, but I will see how the decks do synergistically wise. Moving on to the other accessories, this actually also shows us a few other things. First up, you obviously can see the two playmats there. They clearly knew that Winnie the Pooh's art was going to be a hit because they have that as a playmat. I really want this one. It is super cute, but not much else to say there. We already know that that card exists. Something more interesting over there is what obviously looks to be the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. However, it's not the same beast that is from the booster box. So that could imply that there are two beasts in this set. The beast on the booster box does look fairly similar to the beast that was in the first chapter. I just don't really see them reusing the art from a previous set in this new one. So I think that means there's almost a confirmed two beasts in this set, which is, I think that's great, but that also means there's going to be three beasts, which would put him up there pretty closely to like Mickey Mouse and Elsa. Up there, you have some card sleeves. That one absolutely looks like Mulan in her outfit, her military outfit, which is implying that there will be another Mulan. That looks like it's a storyborn Mulan, just because that's very similar to what she looks like in the movie. And then over there, even more interestingly, is Sisu from Raya and the Last Dragon. Obviously, we saw Raya previewed, but this is also implying that there's going to be a Sisu card as well. We did already announce that these were leaked in my previous weekly MTG episode, so nothing too crazy here that we didn't already know. However, it is really cool to see them, especially that Winnie the Pooh art. Like I said, absolutely spectacular. Before we move on to probably the coolest part of what they announced today, even better than I think the cards from the second set, I did want to break down some information that I'll put some fun stuff on screen, but I there was just additional information that doesn't currently have any images to go along with it. So they did say that this set is going to have about 200 cards, obviously all with new artwork, and it's going to feature Disney characters that we know and love, some that we've seen today, but they also announced that there's going to be some other IPs that are added to this that we haven't seen before, such as Zootopia, Pinocchio, Jungle Book, Great Mouse Detective, which we saw that card with the dinner bell, and then Raya and the Last Dragon, which we've seen a few things from too. So that's not to say this is all inclusive. However, they have already announced that there's going to be some more IPs. I'm very excited about Zootopia. Zootopia is probably one of my favorite 3D Disney movies. I think people really like it, and I still think it's underrated. I do really like that movie, so I'm very excited to see who they have there. I would also be really excited if they had some enchanted cards, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. They did announce those. They also announced probably my favorite thing that exists today, and that is the Disney 100. This thing is absolutely spectacular. It's going for $50 and it released a few days after, or a few weeks, I guess, after the main set on November 17th. It will release on December 1st. And it features four Rise of the Floodborn booster packs, but even better, it has six reprints of certain cards, all done by Disney artists and all signed by them. I think this is going to be amazing. I think this is way better than the gift box. I think people are going to love this thing. That being said, I think people are going to possibly love this thing too much. So I'm, I wouldn't be surprised to see if this thing sells out and it gets scalped so badly. But I do think people are going to be really excited. This is just a perfect intersection of Disney collectability and trading cards stuff. So I think people are going to really like this one. I really like this one. I'm excited for this one. I think this is probably the coolest announcement so far. I'm definitely going to pick up a few if I can. Hopefully it doesn't sell out. But that is the probably coolest thing that they've announced. Real quick, not too much to say here. You also have the Lumineers Trove. I'll be honest, the Lumineers Trove was probably my least favorite SKU of Lorcana. I was just really disappointed by the quality of this. Um, but there is something interesting to be said about this, and that's over there on the left-hand corner. You can actually see some Shere Khan there. So they've already announced that there's going to be the Jungle Book a part of this. So that kind of confirms that there's a Shere Khan. So that's really all there is to say here. I mean, hopefully the quality is better. I'm not holding my breath for this one. I really don't think this one is worth the money. I would rather get a booster box or especially the gift bundle Disney 100 thing. All right, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. I haven't done a video like this before where I just sit down and kind of break down cards. I've done this before on my Twitch streams, but I've never done this just in front of a camera and just riffing. So please let me know if you like this. Also, let me know what you think of these cards, or if you think I'm way off base, if you think another card is way better than I said, or if you think a card is way worse than I said. I'd be really interested to hear what you think. I think that they showed off some really powerful cards. Tiana, I'm really intrigued by. Belle, I'm really intrigued by. Cinderella is probably the best card, I think, personally, that they've shown off today. Um, I will say I don't think anything quite tops any of the other cards that we've had so far. I don't think it tops the original Belle. Honestly, I think Friends on the Other Side is still the most powerful card so far, but we'll see what they show off. We are getting close to, I mean, we're in it. We're in preview season. It comes out November 17th, which means that we have only a few weeks, to be honest. You know, having worked on card games before, you need to get that hype going and you need to get it going pretty early. And then you'll get into pre-release season, you'll get into the events and the releases. So we're actually getting pretty close to it, and which means that they're sticking with this cadence of about 3 months, which is pretty similar to most other major card games. So I would get used to this being kind of the cadence that we get from Lorcana. I'm also noticing, at least looking at the packaging, some of the things that we had some issues with, like the way of, people being able to stick their hands into the booster box. As I theorized, this chapter is not going to have a solution to that, or most likely not going to, just based off of looking at the boxes and stuff that we've had. There's not any fixes to that. I don't think we will see a fix to that until at least the third chapter. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but it was expected. So anyway, let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know what you think of Lorcana. Talk about it down in the comments below. I would love to hear it. I'd love to talk to y'all and get to know you. So other than that, my name is Light, and in turn.